Hey everybody, and welcome to round 8 here from Grand Prix Milwaukee. Marie Bartholdi and Reed Duke in the booth with you here this round. Owen Turtenwald versus Donnie Wise on Jeskai Drakes versus Golgari Midrange. Both players currently undefeated here in our tournament area. Donnie Wise on Golgari Midrange, and Reed, this is the first time that we have seen this deck in the feature match area as far as when we've been commentating.
Yeah, so this is a deck that everyone knows is out there, but it's not flashy. It's not one that everyone's talking about, except me, unless you've been listening to me all weekend. But yeah, this is a deck that has reasonable matchups across the field. It's got a lot of good tools for the aggressive matchups like that Wild Growth Walker that we're seeing. And here, Donnie Wise, 7-0, off to a good start in the tournament, off to a good start in this game with Llanowar Elves into double creature here.
Yeah, and that Wild Growth Walker able to get a +1/+1 counter on it, gain Donnie some life already. Owen's going to kick things off with Chart a Course here.
Now, one of the important aspects of this matchup is that the Wild Growth Walker outsizes Lava Coil very quickly. So Owen did not have Lava Coil this turn, which means he's going to be really dependent on either drawing his one-of Entrancing Melody to answer this Wild Growth Walker, or just trying to race it, which is a tall order for a card that can gain you 3 or 6 life every single turn. Owen does have a good start on his own side, though, of discarding 2 Arclight Phoenixes.
Yeah, 2 Phoenixes in the graveyard is gas for here for Turtenwald, who, as soon as this turn, could potentially get him back.
Owen really dodged a bullet there with no additional Explore creature, no Vivian Reed. There were a lot of things that Donnie Wise could have done to progress his game plan, but he had no play on turn 4 except to cast down the Crackling Drake, which does wind up being okay.
Yeah, so Donnie keeping the battlefield clear here. And yeah, Vraska's coming to play. Here she comes.
Yeah, Vraska Relic Seeker, very powerful, and you had set the stage for us with Maximize Velocity, Maria. This Vraska is going to make it really difficult for Owen to win a fair game because he can't simply put a creature onto the battlefield and pass the turn. He's going to have to either use Maximize Velocity, or he's going to have to use the Arclight Phoenixes to manage the Vraska and get her off the battlefield before he can stick something.
See what Owen chooses to do here. We're going to start things off with Discovery. Vraska Relic Seeker, often referred to as the big Vraska in this deck here, since you have a couple of options. She can create a 2/2 Pirate with Menace, and also, most crucially probably, her -3 destroy target artifact, creature, or enchantment. You get a treasure. The -10 target player's life total becomes 1. Owen here digging for some kind of answers. We've got that Discovery. We have an Opt-in here. We have a Chart a Course. So rifling through the deck, and here come the Phoenixes.
Yep. So we'll see exactly what Owen decides to do with them. Sometimes you see the Izzet players forced into a blocking position at this point in the game, and you will note 7 power on Donnie Wise's side of the battlefield, 9 points of life for Owen Turtenwald.
Yeah, you said it. Precarious position for Turtenwald, 9 life to Wise's 23, and a very powerful Planeswalker on the table for Wise. But don't count Owen out. We saw him get out of some pretty sticky situations earlier today. The decision here is to attack both Arclight Phoenixes at Vraska, knocking her down to 2.
So note that a Jade Light Ranger would win the game for Donnie Wise here. 2 Explorers would be 2 triggers on Wild Growth Walker.
So Vraska's only line of duty here is to make that 2/2 Pirate. So now we've got a couple and no Jade Light Ranger, so we're going to attack in. Knocking Owen down to 2. Can Owen stabilize from this point?
One particularly tricky thing is that those Pirates have Menace, so they are not easy to block. He'll have to spend multiple removal spells on the Pirates in addition to putting up a pretty impressive team of blockers if he wants to survive even one more turn.
There's that Goblin Electromancer, one of the hallmark cards of the Izzet Drake's deck. Really makes it tick, and here you can see it doing its thing. We're able to jumpstart a radical idea for a single mana. Two mana left for Turtenwald here. Passes back to Wise. 3 blockers left back for Owen. Vraska's going to minus on the Electromancer to take care of it, and net-wise a treasure token. In comes the team once again, and up come the cards for Owen Turtenwald as he scoops them up. That is Donnie Wise taking game number 1 here against Owen Turtenwald. Golgari mid-range over Is It Drakes here in round 8.
So this a bit of a controversial matchup. On my team practicing for the Pro Tour, we had a split opinion on which deck was ahead in this matchup, and to be quite honest with you, some of us played the matchup and Golgari came out ahead, and it was those players that chose to play Golgari at the Pro Tour, and some of us played this matchup and Is It was ahead, and it was those players that chose to play Is It at the Pro Tour. So it's a complicated matchup with a lot of moving parts. I think it does depend a lot on the particular card choices of the players. And it's also one that's going to change substantially after sideboarding, depending on what the players choose to do. Owen might be bringing in his entrancing melodies and some more controlling stuff. Donnie Wise, we'll see if he turns to his duress and his Deathgord Scavenger. But
and
at any rate, it is Donnie taking game number 1.
You said it, like Golgari mid-range, there isn't just one build of that, especially prior to the Pro Tour, that people were 100% settled on. This is the best build.
Yeah, a lot of disagreement, even with a card that, is almost a staple in the deck, Wild Growth Walker. There are players who just eschewed that completely and played Druid of the Cowl. So fundamental differences like that are the start, and then you get down to the nitty-gritty of stuff like, am I going to play 1 Memorial to Folly or 2? Am I going to play Carnage Tyrant or Vraska Relic Seeker? The individual card choices matter a lot as well.
So you picked Golgari mid-range to bring to the Pro Tour. How did you feel about the white aggressive decks going in?
I felt that I was ahead. I thought I could manage the matchups, but it was not as good as I wanted it to be, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I sort of went into the testing process thinking, I'll just load my deck with Spot Removal and Ravenous Chupacabra and Ritual of Soot and this and that, and I'll crush them, right?
Right.
That was not my experience. My experience was you sort of need to have every card fit in the right place, and you still need a little bit of luck even after that to escape the matchups. In particular, the card Tecatli Honor Guard can ruin your day after sideboarding.
As our players shuffle up here for game number 2, Donnie Wise currently up a game over Owen Turtenwald. Something interesting that I saw, with the Golgari decks earlier on was playing Eldest Reborn in kind of a reanimation strategy. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that was passed over in favor of this build?
Well, the Eldest Reborn, it's a little bit clunky, right? It's amazing when it works, when you can actually play it and get their last creature and then have the game go a little bit longer and you get to reanimate something. It's like the best thing ever. But not all decks in the format are going to let you do that. For example, there's the Is It Drakes deck that has Arclight Phoenixes recurring, and they might kill you in 1 turn out of nowhere with maximized velocity, so a big, clunky sorcery speed answer card is not always what you want. Similarly, the white and red aggressive decks, they flood the board very quickly. A 5-mana Edict is not going to stabilize the board for you. So it's just an issue of sort of the metagame, the particular creatures and planeswalkers that people are bringing, and the play patterns that you're going to find in the format. Still a good card.
Donnie Wise here taking a mulligan. Owen Turtenwald has kept his 7 cards. See if he likes his 6. Kind of get a peek at his hand. No land yet. Oof, that's a tough one.
Looked like it would have been really good if he found a land. He had duress into Wild Growth Walker.
Oh, yeah?
Closest thing you're going to have till a Thoughtseize Tarmogoyf in this format.
I heard Simon Gertzen at a GP talking about, thanks to the new Vancouver mulligan, as we call it, scrying when you've mulliganed, he's keeping a lot more one-landers as long as he gets that, he gets that scry.
Yeah, for sure. My basic one-line take on the Vancouver mulligan is that you should be a lot more willing to mulligan your 7-card hand and a lot more willing to keep your 6-card hand.
Okay.
So in other words, 6 is sort of the magic number. 6 with a scry is not that much worse than 7, but once you get down to 5, as Donnie Wise is, you're just so low on resources that sometimes it's difficult to play.
All right, so Donnie Wise keeping this hand, he's going to put that onto the bottom, and we are off to the races here. Memorial to Folly there for Wise. Starting things off. Goblin Electromancer for Owen Turtenwald. So exactly when he wants to play it on turn 2. And Wise passes a turn back. Opt for Turtenwald.
Electromancer quite important in this matchup, in my opinion, because it gets in underneath stuff like Ravenous Chupacabra and Vraska's Contempt. Yes, sometimes the Golgari player is going to have cast down, but most of the time that Goblin Electromancer hits the battlefield, it's going to provide a really nice tempo and mana advantage. Even if they do have cast down, that's a turn that they're not playing their Jade Light Ranger or their Wild Growth Walker.
Good point. No third land here for Wise. Has to throw it back over to Turtenwald, who's getting in with those sick Electromancer beats. Wise down to 16, and there's Crackling Drake draw card. We've already got 3 in the yard. No land once again for Wise, stuck on 2. And Turtenwald is poised to run away with this game.
Yeah, a really bad situation for Donnie, because you have to figure if he can't answer these creatures with 2 mana, there's not that many answers at 3 mana. So he's really hoping to somehow survive for 2 turns until he can start deploying his Chupacabras and Vraska's Contempts, but no.
Yeah, he decides it's not worth it, scoops him on up. Oh, and Turtenwald is going to even things up here. 1 game apiece. Owen on Is It Drakes, Donnie Wise, Golgari mid-range. And we didn't really get to see Donnie's deck do its thing that game, obviously. But what do you think he's going to do differently in these sideboarded matches, sideboard games with Owen?
Well, one card I was wondering about is Duress. Duress is a card that, you know, seems pretty good against Is It Drakes. They're a spell-based deck. You're rarely going to miss with it. But it's not necessarily clear if you want to just bring in all 4 blindly, since you do want to maintain enough pressure and answer cards for their creatures. But looked like Donnie did have multiple Duresses in his deck post-sideboard. I think he's going to have Death Gorge Scavenger. And I guess the other question is, how much top end is he going to keep? Is he going to have Carnage Tyrant? Is he going to keep those Vraska Relic Seekers? Or focus more on a sort of like aggro rock plan where he's trying to duress and stick some quick beatdown creatures?
That was really cool a few tournaments ago when we had the inventor of the rock playing the rock in a tournament.
Yeah, that of course, Sol Malka. He's a guy who was around even long before my time.
And you're ancient.
Yeah.
Shuffling up for game number 3 here. In round 8, our final round today, both of our players currently undefeated at 7-0. So they are in day 2, no question about it. And if they go in undefeated, we'll feel awesome tonight. The other couple of matches in our feature match area are X and 2s, so they are fighting for their right to come back and party tomorrow on day 2. That's Sam Black and Matthew Wicksberg, Ken Crocker, and Kentaro Yamamoto.
Party in the 6-2 bracket.
Oh, yeah. That's how I like to start my day, too.
Anytime you're starting a day 2, you got to feel pretty good.
That's true. The last day 2 I was in, I was playing my SRAM deck in Standard. Oh boy, I love that deck. Just drawing cards, pretending you're playing Boggles in Standard. You know. Adanto Vanguard, living that life.
You must have been sad to see SRAM go.
Oh yeah,
now you're stuck
super
with
sad.
Novice Knight.
I know, right? Oh, Donnie Wise on the mulligan again here. But Owen Turtenwald is going to join him as both of our players head down to 6. Like you said, mulligans, you know, it's something that you just have to grin and bear sometimes. It's the way the Magic goes. But 6 with a single land and a scry, not that much worse than a 7.
Yeah, both these players still have great hope of just, you know, coming out nicely and having a decent hand. One thing that is, it can be pretty frustrating if you're facing Donnie Wise's position, where it's now 3 hands in a row where you just look and you're like, you know what, I can't play with this hand, I have to mulligan. But just keeping focus and not getting discouraged and continuing to make good decisions with your mulligans, even in the face of frustration, is really, really important, because like we said, you are still in the game. You know, you're still looking for the hand that's going to give you your best chance of winning. So rather than just get frustrated and saying, whatever, I'll keep this one, I like to see Donnie still thinking hard about it and looking for the cards that he needs to win.
Well done to both our players, even the person who happens to be on the losing end of this matchup starting day 2 at X and 1. It's going to feel great, too. All right, here we go. Let's draw our 6. See if we can do any better. That looks better, at least from Donnie's side of the battlefield.
Wow, and Owen with double Arclight Phoenix, which that's a card that you really want to end up in your graveyard, but if it's in your hand, you're only one step away. So if he has the right stuff, like Tormenting Voice and Chartacourse, this could develop pretty nicely.
All right, Wild Growth Walker on 2 starts things off for Donnie Wise here. No play yet from Turtenwald. There's the Branch Walker. Let's go exploring. Finds a land.
Really nice start for Donnie, especially after a mulligan. Now he knows he's all set with his mana. Owen did not have the Lava Coil on turn 2.
That's so funny. You must Lava Coil this Wild Growth Walker, but it's like so true.
Yeah, you only have a narrow window to do it. Otherwise, it's gonna grow out of range.
Radical Idea, end of turn for Turtenwald there. The Wild Growth Walker getting a counter from the Explorer from the Branch Walker. Gaining Wise 3 life. Beacon Bolt takes down the Branch Walker. Just only had 1 toughness after finding the land on the Explorer.
The good news for Owen, this is pretty bad news for Owen. That Tormenting Voice was a pretty important card in his hand. Now, keep in mind he does have 2 Jumpstart cards, so he can still put those. He can still cast spells and put those Arclight Phoenixes where they need to be, but that's going to take away a lot of his velocity, so to speak, his ability to see more cards.
So Duress nabs that Tormenting Voice. Wild Growth Walker gets in for some more damage.
The good news for Owen is that Donnie's hand is very reactive. He has stuff like Ravenous Chupacabra, which will actually find a reasonable target in the Arclight Phoenix here, but Donnie is not slamming. He's not just ending the game quickly. So Owen has a little bit of time to draw out of this awkward situation.
Owen hard casting that Arclight Phoenix last turn, and here's the Chupacabra. The hungry boy takes down the Phoenix. In comes the Wild Growth Walker. Now
I saw that Donnie picked up Jade Light Ranger, decided to stick with his original plan of Chupacabra. I think it was a nice window to resolve the Jade Light Ranger, again putting the Wild Growth Walker out of range, just buffering your power and toughness on the battlefield, your life total. It's pretty nice, especially since you recently cleared the way and made sure there isn't something like an Entrancing Melody waiting for you.
That's a good point. Opt here for Turtenwald starting things off on his turn. And now we are going to jumpstart Radical Idea, Phoenix into the yard, draw a card. And another opt. All right, that'll do it. Back come the Phoenixes from the grave, like they do. Land. And he says go.
Phoenix is on defense. We've seen it before from Owen Turtenwald.
And, you know, just killing those Phoenixes with something like a Chupacabra just doesn't feel so great.
Yeah, that's another thing is, you know, the Phoenix might have just been in the exact same place whether or not it died to Chupacabra. In other words, if Owen had been able to untap with the Phoenix, he may have just decided to pass the turn and leave it on defense anyway. But wow, this really actually turning out nicely for Donnie, allowing him to use his mana really conveniently. There he's going to leave Vraska's Contempt on top, skyrocket in life up to 32.
And that Wild Growth Walker is huge, smashing in here with the Chupacabra.
Yeah, so now it's going to be difficult for Owen to kill that Wild Growth Walker. Even with Beacon Bolt, he really needs Entrancing Melody.
All right, we're going to trade off the Chupacabra and the Arclight Phoenix. Wild Growth Walker gets in for a big chunk of damage. Owen Turtenwald down to 8. Crackling Drake enters the battlefield, draws a card for Turtenwald, plays a land.
It's a tough way to do it because Owen's going to know that Donnie has an answer to that Crackling Drake.
And, well, he's got more than one. There's a Chupacabra. And everybody's turned sidewise here for Wise. Arclight Phoenix wants to trade. Able to shock down one of the Jade Light Rangers.
So that Jade Light Ranger
excuse me.
should trade in combat.
Yep. And a Memorial to Folly for Wise, a follow-up play. Things not looking so good for Turtenwald here in this spot.
No, he really needs to be able to chain spells and return those Phoenixes again to buy himself more time.
And there is the handshake. Donnie Wise takes down this match versus Owen Turtenwald. So Donnie starting day 2 undefeated. You can see he looks pretty happy there. I would be too. Turtenwald, not so bad at X&1. And he has a little smile as well. So everything friendly down in the feature match area here in our final round of Standard at Grand Prix Milwaukee. And Golgari looked pretty solid there, Reed.
Yeah, Wild Growth Walker and Jade Light Ranger, just such a powerful combination. Bolstering your life total, putting a lot of power and toughness onto the battlefield, filling your hand with lands, making sure everything runs smooth. It's just, sort of everything you want.
All right, let's check in on our B table here. This is Matthew Wicksberg versus Sam Black.
Oh, no, and Sam, he's run into the matchup that we said he did not want, which is an opposing control deck that has counter spells and some additional card drawing. So Sam very much gearing his deck for creature matchups, running into Jeskai control for his winning in here. Let's see if he can fight the uphill battle and actually win. Looks like he's doing okay in this game.
Ionize takes care of a history of Benalia there. And there's a Crackling Drake. Draws a card for Matt. Back over to Sam, who's got that treasure map in play.
Yeah, so Sam actually succeeding in getting some card advantage going. I think if Matthew had had Teferi there, it would have been a really difficult game for Sam to win. But as is, he gets to transform treasure map. He has Arch of Arazka ready to go. Maybe I missaw, actually. That's not an Arch of Arazka in the middle there. No, it is.
Yeah, right
towards
there.
the bottom of the screen. He's got another treasure map coming, and he's playing powerful spells. So this is a game that Sam Black could easily win.
Okay. Siege Gang Commander hits the table for Sam. So is able to resolve that spell there, and a rare window left open by Jeskai Control, which you usually find after the play of a Crackling Drake.
Been really impressed with the combination of Crackling Drake and Deafening Clarion out of Jeskai. Wipe the board, leave my 4-power creature, gain some life for my troubles.
Oh, yeah. We've been seeing Jeskai Control just kind of running away with it so far today.
It's a really good deck.
I can never beat it, but then again, I'm playing Boros Angels.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeskai, it has plenty of game against Golgari and the fast decks, but what it really wants to be playing is these medium speed decks like Sam Black's Boros tokens, like the Boros Angels that you just mentioned. Those are sort of the freebie matchups. Not that you can't lose, but they're highly favorable.
Another treasure map question mark for Sam Black. Met with an Ionize from Matthew. Sam will go down to 16. Matthew still at 20 for the moment, and I see a couple of Banefires and a Karn in hand for Sam.
Yeah, so that makes this game really interesting, and I'll be curious to see how Sam navigates with the 2 Banefires. Is he going to be really conservative with his treasures? Is he going to try to drag the game on and hit more land drops? Is he going to be aggressive at attacking his opponent's life total?
In come the Goblin tokens for Sam Black. Crackling Drake jumps in front, and there we see a sacrifice to try and finish it off.
So this, if I'm Matthew, okay. So Sam decided to go ahead and finish off the Drake rather than worry about Matthew's life total. Pretty interesting, Sam playing a little bit around Settle the Wreckage or Seal Away there. He could have just thrown 2 goblins pre-combat and then got in with the Siege Gang Commander as well, which would have been 1 more damage. But this way he doesn't leave himself vulnerable to Seal Away answering his commander.
7 mana available here for Matthew, and he's just going to pass the turn back over to Sam. All right, let's get in. Commander and his Goblin enter the fray, and there's a Seal Away from Matthew. Targeting the Siege Game Commander. Sam's going to make a little bit of a decision here on how he wants to spend his mana this turn. He lets it happen.
Interesting decision. I wonder if that means Sam has some amount of enchantment removal in his deck after sideboarding here.
Plays a land, passes Chemister's Insight for Matthew.
It would, of course, be very powerful to unlock the Siege Gang Commander from Seal Away with something like Invoke the Divine.
That would be sweet. Free him! Enigma Drake in hand for Matthew. The lesser of 2 Drakes. But you know what? Still good. I see a Seal Away there too.
Wow, a little bit unusual to see Enigma Drake out of Jeskai control.
It is.
That's much more of an Izzet card, Izzet Drake's deck. Usually Jeskai focusing more on Planeswalkers, maybe a couple of Crackling Drakes.
So there's an Enigma Drake for Matthew. Sam draws a land. Still 2 lands, 2 Banefires, and a Karn in hand.
Sam is going to be keenly aware of Deafening Clarion. The last thing he wants is to base his whole game plan around Banefiring the opponent out and then have Matthew gain 6 life out of nowhere with Deafening Clarion giving lifelink. So Sam going to think a lot about that, maybe decide to point the Banefire at the Drake. Nope.
That was the most decisive at you I've seen in quite some time. So he's just going to go for it here. Big Banefire from Sam Black.
And you can see that he has exactly 10 ready to go next turn if he makes his land drop and sacrifices those 2 treasures. Ooh.
There is a Deafening Clarion in Matthew's hand.
Matthew did not do anything with Chemister's Insight. I can't say I agree with that decision. I wonder if he just sort of overlooked it.
Yeah.
But he's not dead. If he sees through Sam's plan and he uses the Deafening Clarion,
which he does,
he's doing okay.
All right, so here we go. Deafening Clarion.
And maybe he just wants the Chemister's Insight to be in his graveyard for the Enigma Drake, because, as we mentioned, this is, in particular, Enigma Drake, not Crackling Drake.
That's true.
But I would have thought, if you discard the Lava Coil, you replace the sorcery in your graveyard, you get a couple more draws, maybe you find, something else that you can cast on your main phase.
Sam's turn here. We're sacrificing treasure to draw some cards. Matthew back up to 16 after that Deafening Clarion lifelinking attack with the Enigma Drake.
I'll point out something else about the way Sam is navigating this game is you're not seeing him just cast 1 spell per turn at sorcery speed into the opponent's permission. He's focusing on uncounterable spells. On the turns that Matthew passes with mana open, Sam is using Arch of Orazka. He's going to stack threats so that when he finally does decide to cast something, he's going to cast multiple spells in the same turn. So he's really trying to make things as inconvenient on the control player as possible. And I think we're going to see Sam be patient, sculpt his hand, and then on a certain turn he might do something like Direfleet, Daredevil, Karn, and a third spell, and really put Matthew to the test of how much of this can you answer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you out-patient the patient deck, the deck that wants to be patient in Jeskai Control? And you said it, just too many threats for them to deal with.
Yeah, now this game really has evened up a lot more. Sam took a line of play that made a lot of sense with the Banefires. It had seemed as though Matthew did not have Deafening Clarion because he didn't answer the Siege Gang Commander.
Right.
But Sam's game plan really fell apart since if he didn't get all the way to the finish line, and getting the opponent low on life didn't really accomplish much. So now the game has evened up, and we're at a stage where Matthew has a full hand. He's his land drops, and Sam's going to have to start worrying about things like Expansion Explosion to really put the game out of reach.
Second Karn was the draw there for Sam. So we can start activating our Arch here. Or just play a Karn. What about this? Ionize at the ready for Matthew.
One of the best things that could happen is if Matthew taps too low on mana to answer the Karn, Sam could then play Direfleet Daredevil and steal the Chemister's Insight, which would be, effectively +2 cards for Sam, -2 cards, or 2 relevant cards for Matthew.
Let's see if it happens. Here's Direfleet Daredevil. I'm going to cast your Insight. Nice.
Very well set up from Sam Black.
So he draws 2 off that, finds an Adanto Vanguard and another land.
This a pretty even game. It's just going to depend who can draw and or resolve a powerhouse card first. I think if Matthew finds Expansion Explosion, it's going to be really hard for Sam to contend with that. In fact, he might just die immediately.
Here's a Crackling Drake for Matthew.
And this, Maria, I find one of the most challenging things about playing against Jeskai Control, which is that,
you just want to die?
Well, it's not that you want to, it's just that,
that you do.
All the things that are traditionally good against Control, these resilient threats, making their mana line up inconveniently, grinding 2-for-1 advantages, they're all good. But you also have to kill them because soon enough they just get to Niv Mizzet, they get to Expansion Explosion, and they sort of outclass everything that you've spent your hard-earned time and mana on. And I think that's what's going to happen to Sam Black here. He did a lot. He drew a lot of cards. He did some cool stuff. But the Jeskai deck is just too powerful in the late game.
Sam's going to keep fighting here. Here's another Karn, and this one is good. A plus here reveals a binding and a land. The land going into Sam's hand, of course. Nice little silver counter on that Ixalan binding. And here's a Lyra.
And it's very possible Sam is just going to be dead if this Lyra does not stick, because the Crackling Drake might be about 8 power already.
Opt finds an Opt. So let's grow our Drake, find some cards. Negate, or excuse me, Disdainful Stroke. All right, so Lyra headed to the bin there for Sam Black. Now on 8 life. Matthew at 16 with that Crackling Drake still in play. And he has quite a stack of cards in his graveyard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, with
9.
only 1 mana available to Sam, I don't think there's anything that Matthew even really needs to play around here.
And then comes the Crackling Drake, and out comes a Handshake. That is Matthew taking down that match. Both players with a smile on their face. That is good to see down there in our feature match area, too. Here at the end of day 1 of Grand Prix Milwaukee. Well, Reed, What are your takeaways after watching all of these rounds today?
Well, it's too bad. I really, really liked Sam Black's deck. I thought he came prepared for a certain metagame, and if things broke his way, he could have done really, really well. There we saw him lose to the matchup that he didn't want to play, playing for day 2 there, so he's going to be eliminated. But I'm still very impressed by these treasure map red decks.
Yeah.
They seem to have a lot of game against both the aggressive decks and for the long game, and when they play against mid-range and control decks. So we'll see if any of those make it deep into the tournament. Other than that, we have all the usual suspects, the white decks, the red decks, the Izzet decks, the Jeskai decks. So pretty balanced, diverse field here going into day 2.
All right. Come back tomorrow for day 2 starting at 9 a.m. Same bat time, same bat channel right here. Maria and Reed saying goodnight.